We've done a lot of work to get ready, and now we're finally ready for our first triangle proof. We're going to prove that the angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So, we're going to use this diagram, and you see various angles labeled. You also see that this top line is parallel to line segment AB. This little arrow mark like that means that they are parallel. So that's the first thing we're told, is that the top line is parallel to the bottom line segment. That is our given statement. Okay, and then the next statement in the proof says that angle 1 and angle 4 are congruent. Well, that's not something we've actually talked about, but if you have two parallel lines and a line running through them, which we call a transversal, we know the vertical angles are congruent. It also makes sense that two corresponding angles, in other words, like this angle and this one, should be equal, should be congruent. So actually we can say these are congruent, also congruent with this one, also congruent with this one. So specifically, if we look at the ones right here in the middle, we call them alternate because they're on alternating sides of the line, alternate interior angles, and they are congruent. Okay, so let's say alternate interior angles are congruent. And we'll just take that as a postulate for right now. All right. Well, if they're congruent, angle 4 and angle 1, if they're congruent, then that means that that the measures of those two angles are equal. We can say that just by the definition of congruence. That's what it means to be congruent, to measure the same. Okay, well, what else can we say? Well, angle 5 and angle 2 are also alternate interior angles. So they are also congruent by that same postulate. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Okay, well, again, if they're congruent, that means that their measures are equal by the definition of congruent. All right, so now, if we look at measure of angle 4 plus measure of angle 3 plus measure of angle 5, that is, let's measure this out carefully. I'll choose a new color. 4 plus 3 plus 5. Well, that makes a line. And a line is 180 degrees. So just by the definition of a line, we can say that that is equal to 180 degrees. And then we can do substitution. If we know that angle 4 is the same as angle 1, I can substitute one for the other. If I know 5 and 2 are the same, I can substitute one for the other. So by substitution, I can say measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 3 plus measure of angle 2 equals 180. And that is this triangle. And there's nothing special about that particular triangle. We could do the same proof for any triangle just by balancing a parallel line on the top. So the triangle sum conjecture says that the measures of the angles in every triangle is 180 degrees.